So you want to start recording and you have nowhere to start, or don't know where to start, I'm going to give you a short list of things. The cool thing is almost anything you buy nowadays is going to get you really great sounding stuff, so you don't have to worry too much, and I highly recommend just getting what you can in your budget. Sometimes you might want to save up to get to the next step, especially as you're looking at like a long-term situation. So the number one thing obviously is you're going to need some kind of a computer. That's going to be the most modern recording setup that you're going to be looking at doing, most likely. There are other ways of recording, but most likely you're going to want a computer. Trust me, it makes editing and recording and a whole bunch of stuff much easier, because then you can get stuff like what you see here. Your computer is going to be the core of your setup. Essentially, it's going to be the thing that allows you to record, edit, and then publish the music as well. Next, you're going to need an interface. That's what this silver box is down here. I'm not sure if you could see that, but essentially what your interface does is it brings your audio in, like from your mics and your guitars, and gets it to the computer. It goes through a conversion process, which we'll get into much later. Next, if you're recording vocals or any kind of instrument that isn't electronic, like an electric guitar, which if you're recording anything that isn't electronic, you're going to need a microphone to capture the sound waves that are coming out of it, like your vocals or maybe an acoustic guitar. Plenty of great mics, which we'll go into details as well much later. Also, you're going to have to hear what you're doing, so you're going to want to get some kind of speakers and most likely a set of headphones, which I don't have in shot right now. You are definitely going to want a set of speakers to listen back in a more natural environment, because there's things that happen with speakers that don't happen with headphones. The artificial isolation of having a headphone over your ear allows you to hear things differently than you would when the sound is mixed in real space via a set of speakers. Most likely you're going to want both. You technically can get away with only getting one or the other, but realistically in the long run you're going to get both, so try to plan to have both. And especially if you're doing vocal recording or any kind of, again, acoustic instrument recording, you're going to want a set of headphones so you don't get bleed of what you're listening to as you're playing back and recording at the same time. We'll get into that later. Most likely as well, you're going to want some kind of MIDI controller. And what that's going to do is allow you to play virtual instruments like strings and pianos and other things that you probably might not have, but the software that you will have. So whenever I press these keys, there's no sound built into this controller, but it does trigger software sounds that are running on my computer, so I can play like an orchestra or drums, samples, I mean really anything. Also, the cool thing about this controller is that it's got faders and stuff, so when I'm mixing and running like effects, I can say, hey, I want this a little bit louder, and that allows you to not touch and click the mouse so much, which is not really the most fun and artistic thing to do. Clicking the mouse kind of takes away from the fun of it all, at least for me. And last thing that you're going to want to focus on is your I/O, and what that means is your in and out. How many instruments are you going to be plugging in, and how many instruments or signal paths are you taking out? Like, do you need to run audio to 2 sets of speakers, 1 set of speakers? Are you going to need to send audio to maybe a vocal booth? How many microphones are you plugging in? How many guitars might you be plugging in via like modeling or basses directly in? Are you plugging in keyboards? You're going to need an input for everything you're plugging in, though you can get a lower input count. The only downside is that every time you change an instrument, you're going to have to change the inputs physically, like unplug the guitar, plug in the bass, and you would be surprised how many problems that will cause. So I highly recommend getting the proper I/O count for what you plan on doing. It's more important than you think it is. So to recap the things you're going to need to get started: computer, microphones, an audio interface, a MIDI controller, speakers and headphones, and then the cables to hook it all up, which we're going to go into cables a little later.